بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we are going to uh, talk about the last section of theory of contract. So we've been into many sections of contract. We talked about the pillars, the three pillars of the contract. We talked about the uh, 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 what they call it, sorry, the effect, right? The purposes and effect of the contract. Then we talked about the conditions of the contract and the classification of the contract. And earlier we discussed the options of the contract. So now we are at the last section, which is actually termination of the contract. So in this class, we will be finishing this very soon. But after this, we're going to start a new chapter, which is about a riba, which means that we are going to talk about the prohibited elements. Because when we talked about the conditions of the contract, um, we talked about also the classification of the contract when we said that there are some contracts are valid, some of them void, some of them even we call it irregular, for example the fasid according to Hanafis. So we need to know what is that actually prohibited elements that actually can make your contract into invalid, and if you are able to avoid or remove that element, then your contract will become valid. So this is what actually we are going to talk about in today's class. But first of all, let me tell you about the termination of contract. I think it's quite simple to understand. It's not that difficult, meaning there are only two ways that you can actually cancel any contract. All right. Number one, of course, you are canceling yourself. Number two, by the death of the contracting parties, which means that during the contract, where while you are doing the contract, while there are a couple of contract actually can happen, and then during that time, it might take some time to conclude the contract. Maybe if it is in the process of negotiation, or like in the process of agreement and writing. So that kind of um, that kind of contract might take some time. So if either one of the parties passed away, then the contract will be terminated. Also, if there are some other contracts like the leasing contract, the ijara we call it. So now when it comes to ijara, let's say a tenant is living in your house and you are the house owner, and then your tenant somehow passed away after some time. So now, as we discussed earlier, there are a couple of different opinions among scholars. There is a group of scholars who says that the contract will be invalid, and if the if the children, they want to continue, they have to make a new contract. That's another group of ulama, fuqaha. They say this usifract of a contract can be inherited. All right, so that's because we discussed earlier, because there is a group of scholars, they consider usifract as a property, and there is another group of scholars, they consider it's just a value added to the contract. It is not actually usifract, it's not actually a commodity, it is not actually a property. That's the reason why they don't consider inheriting that kind of property, which is actually, we call it here usifract. All right, so with that note, let me just give you an idea. Let me show you the slide. Generally all contracts may come to an end by cancellation or by the death of one of the parties. Yeah, by cancellation mean when the condition is not met. Example, when the party is not competent on, or when an unspecified things is sold. A contract can also be cancelled through the exercise of options. It can be also discussed, it can be also cancelled by mutual agreement between the parties, iqala, meaning they are about to conclude the contract, but then iqala means mutually, they both, they decided it's okay, let us stop this contract because it seems like the market price might um, go up after 1 week time, and then the buyer also think that maybe it is not necessary for me to buy right now. Maybe I can wait for some other time, or maybe I can see some other dealings, right? So when they have mutually the agreement, when they say it's okay, we want to cancel it, it could be cancelled. The other thing that we discussed earlier about exercise of option, during that 3 days of the options, or maybe like you have the period of trial, or during the warranty and guarantee period, you can actually apply for a refund. So this also can be cancelled. Or when you think where you over the phone you thought the person is actually doing this business is actually adult, but when you went to the shop and then you realize that the person is not doesn't have a shop, and he actually a child, a minor, so you are not supposed to do dealing with the minor. So because of that also, the trade, the contract can be cancelled. Cancellation due to frustration, where it is impossible for one of the parties due to natural causes, it could be possible. For example, the subject matter is actually no more. Let's say there is a disaster happening, maybe it's a flood or something, or earthquake or something. If the things are not there, or maybe there's a fire, burnt the entire shop or something. Again, maybe you have made, maybe let's say you made the agreement and you already paid, and then you are waiting for the delivery. Suddenly something happened on the way it's been delivered to you, so meaning to say, the product has been destroyed, because this is not by the willingness of the seller. It happened because of the natural cause, or maybe God willings, right? So because of that also, the contract can be cancelled when the period for which the contract is made ends, or when the purpose is achieved. When the period for renting a house ends, and the period for the contract of employment ends, when the guarantor settles the loan. So this is all, the last one that we are talking, this is all about, you are having a service, or you are having a lease, or you are working in an office, and you have given tenure, you have given certain period of time to go with that kind of agreement. Let's say if you are having the house, so for sure there is an agreement for 2 years or 3 years. Yeah. So you have a loan, let's say for a few years. Let's say you are working for some company, then they will say that every 2 years, or maybe within that 2 years time. So these are maybe that's because the renewal is needed. If not, then your contract can be terminated. All right. So the same thing goes to guarantor settles the loan. So this is all happen if that end of the period. If the period ends, then it's quite simple to understand, the contract is terminated. Yeah. Okay. The second one is, as I told you earlier, it's quite simple as that, because if one of the parties, whether seller or buyer, if one of them is no more, uh, then the concluding contract will become cancelled. Yeah. But here it is, there are some consideration. According to the Hanafis, the contract of lease or ijara comes to an end when either of the parties dies. Other schools do not consider death as one of the grounds that may terminate the contract of ijara. This is what I told you earlier, that there is a Hanafi, the other majority. According to the majority, the death will not, I mean, terminate the contract, right? Because they still think that it could be inherited by the children of the one who demise. Also, it goes to pledge contract, rahnu. The heirs of the deceased pledger can settle the debt of the pledgee and release the pledged property, which would be divided among them. I don't think the second one has different opinions. I think everybody agreed because you let's say my father put something al rahnu, and then the children can continue that agreement, and the children can pay the money that has been borrowed, and then they can take back the rahnu, right? It's a pledging contract can be continued. I don't think they have different opinions on that. But generally speaking, maybe specifically there are some different opinions. And then C, the contract of guarantee for the person is terminated by the death of either the guaranteed person or the guarantor. This is quite obvious because someone, let's say my father became the guarantor for someone. Let's say my father passed away, then that guarantorship cannot come to the son because it's a responsibility that only my father he wanted to do it. It is a responsibility because if let's say if the person did not pay, then my father's supposed to pay. That's what guarantor means, which means there is a kind of additional responsibility that my father wanted to do. It is not on the people who follow him, the people who come after him. So that's why the guarantor of contract of guarantee for the person is terminated by the death of either the guaranteed person or guarantor. Also, the partnership and wakala agency, whatever that we assign someone to do work for us, agent, or not binding on the parties. These contracts end with the death of one of the parties. Let's say I have an assistant and I ask him to do something for me, but let's say if I die, then he also, I mean, um, there is no continuity in the contract because it will be terminated. Also, it goes to partnership. Partnership also the same thing. If I'm partner in something and if I passed away, then the contract is actually cancelled, terminated. Maybe, of course, if money involves in that partnership, then the other partner has to settle the money back to the heirs, the children, and then the children can make the deal whether they want to take the money out or they want to continue with the partnership. If they want to continue with the partnership, they have to make a new agreement. It's not like the previous agreement. So that's how things will work. All right. Um, Okay, so I think with that, I'm finishing this theory of contract. This is the last section of the theory of the contract. And let me go to next topic, which is prohibited elements. This is the last topic of the semester. All right, so if there is any questions, I welcome. If you have any questions before I start the next one, please go ahead.
Sir,
Yeah.
so can you repeat the example for contract of guarantee one more time?
Okay, the guarantee, if someone become the guarantor for you, and then somehow, let's say I wanted you become, let's say you wanted me to become the guarantor, right, for something. Let's say if you are not able to pay, then I have to pay. Then in somehow what happened that there was an incident that I passed away. Then now the contract between you and me, or the contract between the person who paid you the money, the person who give you the loan on the basis of my guarantorship, right? So this is what we call this is what we call the guarantorship, right? This kafala we call it, kafil becoming kafil. This kafala, the contract, will come to an end because of me, because I passed away, right? So it cannot and then my kafala, because I became the kafil for you, I cannot give that kafala to my son. My son cannot become responsible for my action. So the thing that, so the kafala has to be terminated. Now, in order to keep your contract of the loan with the bank or somebody, you have to produce a new kafil. You have to bring a new guarantor so that the bank will continue to help you. So this is what the meaning of guarantorship. Yeah, you got it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any other questions? Anybody? Please go ahead. Okay, then. So if there is no question, then let me start the next one. I think this is the last slide of this semester. I think we have around four topics to cover. I think most probably we will be doing this in three classes. So today we are going to talk about the first prohibited elements in transaction, which is a riba. I think most of you know riba, but this time we are going into details to talk about riba. The next one is a gharar, which means ambiguity, a gharar in transactions, whereby we will be discussing about the differences between ambiguity, gharar, and risk. Is it the taking the risk? Risk management and ambiguity, are they same or are they different? Are they different? Then we're gonna talk about the gambling maisir and then the prohibited properties. So most probably we will be finishing within three classes, I think, including this one. Then I think our last class will be January, I think January 7, I think, yeah. So let us continue with riba. Okay, riba, I think all of you knows, it's called usuri or interest. The Quran and the Hadith have forbidden usuri. Halallahu al-bay'a wa harrama riba. Right? Allah said first what He permitted. He said a trade is permitted, but if you bring any sort of usuri or interest in that trading, then it is actually riba. All right, it is actually haram. So have forbidden usuri and all usurious transactions in the strongest terms. And then you need to know that there are two types of riba that we need to learn today. The first one is a riba on credit, which we call a riba an nasi'ah. The second one is actually riba on cash, which means riba al fadl. To make it to make it simple, you need to understand riba on credit, riba on nasi'a is what actually Quran talks about, and riba on cash, riba al fadl is actually what Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about. All right. So you need to understand two different dimensions of the riba. The riba is not a simple thing to understand. It's a lot. There are so many dimensions, varieties, uh, for you to understand riba, because a riba can take many forms. Especially today, it has thousands forms. Yeah, so I think I need to understand the core of riba, the basic elements, that what exactly prohibited in trade. Then you need to understand the basic, the most basic characteristics of riba, so that you will be able to apply those characteristics in any form of trade, and then find out whether it contains riba or not. Mm? So you don't expect every time scholar come and tell you, particularly this business is prohibited, particularly this company is prohibited, particularly this way of transaction contract is prohibited. You don't expect every time scholars comes and tell you, right? Because if you understand what is the characteristic of riba, and then subhanallah, Allah has given all of us the sense to think, the intellectual, the creativity Allah has given to us. So we need to apply those, whatever that we learned so far about the riba, and then see if that characters, if those characters resemble in such contract, then it's become prohibited contract. All right. At the same time, we need to also discuss a lot, just because most of the time what happens, um, we consider riba as equal as eating haram meat, right? So now, because we see that, of course we all agree that the non-halal meat, and we call it haram meats. At the same time, we have the riba. But the haram meat, it's quite simple. It's not complicated. It's quite simple, crystal clear to understand what is exactly prohibited. Because if it is other than the permitted, if it is other than the permitted cattle, the permitted animals, then it is haram. Even if it is permitted any animals, but it was not slaughtered by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is haram. So it's very crystal clear to understand the prohibited elements in any meat. But when we talk about riba, right? When we talk about riba, it's not that clear to understand, like like today we can understand the halal food. Huh? So now, when it comes to riba, especially today, the forms of business, the designs of trading that we are talking about, we have it today, especially in today economic sector, right? Which is actually very, very complex. It's become very much complicated. That's why most of the time, uh, sometimes we think it is halal, but it is haram. Sometimes it is actually, we think it is haram, but actually it is halal. So this is what exactly happening, and most of the time, we culturally speaking, we don't want to go there. It's because we consider it is haram, as we consider the haram meat, the haram food. Yeah. But I want you to make yourself available to think about it thoroughly and to do some research on it, and then you come up um, with your idea whether it is halal or haram. Especially we talk about riba, right? Other than that, I know it's complicated, but it can be understood, and to understand properly, you need to understand the Quran and Hadith from the beginning, from its basic, from its from its real meaning. So that's really important. Yeah. So let us talk about what exactly riba and nasi'a that has been described in Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah says, "Ahallallahu al-bay'a wa harrama riba." So what exactly Allah means Allah meant by saying riba? Riba and nasi'a refers to a stipulated increase over the loan, which a debtor agrees to pay to his creditor in relation of a specific period of time. All right. So how many things are here? First one, you are asking for a loan, So now the giver, the loan giver says, okay, if you pay, when you pay back, I mean, if you pay immediately, I mean, if you pay within that time, you don't have to pay extra. But if you pass the specific period of time, then you have to increase the money. So now that increasing the money is becoming what? Is becoming haram because it is called riba. All right. It is a fixed charge payable by the borrower to the lender irrespective of what the loan money produces, right? Thus any gain that comes from a loan transaction is usurious. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, the type of riba prohibited by the Quran. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, Jabir said that Allah's Messenger cursed the acceptor, mm, the one who borrow the money, the one who pay the money, and the one who records the money, and the one who becomes the witness of that money. You know, in Bukhari and Muslim, it says that Allah's Messenger says that they are all equal, and whether it's not about who practice who take the loan, who borrow the money from someone. The borrower, he may require something. He may urgently needed some money. For that was the reason why he wanted to borrow some money based on riba. uh, if you look at his end, it looks like he is actually going to lose because of borrowing the money from someone. He is not actually going to gain because he has to pay back, and then he also is not going to pay back the same money. He is going to pay back extra money. So if you look at his end, it's quite difficult actually for the borrower to pay back again. Prophet ﷺ said even he is also equal as the one who lend the money, the one who was lending the money, who was giving the money to someone on the basis of riba. Again, everybody equal in this, right? So this is what the Prophet ﷺ, talked about. All right, he said it, they are curse. Okay. Riba usually arises when the parties to a certain transaction deal with properties which are perishable and homogeneous. That's why we talked about in the theory of property what is perishable and what is homogeneous, the similar product, similarity, and the similar product. This example that they written here, it is based on the hadith, and the example is gold, silver, money, dates, salt, etc. While lending these properties, the creditor is not allowed to charge the debtor for their use. In contrast, a person may charge another for the use of his usable properties, such as house or car, as their future beneficiaries. So now, basically speaking, this is the basic idea of the riba. So when you are lending any perishable or homogeneous product, for example, I'm lending a kilo of sugar to someone. I'm giving a kilo of wheat to someone. I'm giving 1,000 ringgit to someone. uh, because all these things are perishable and homogeneous. You got it? All these are perishable because what I mean by perishable, when I give you 1 kilo of sugar, definitely your concern is actually to consume that 1 kilo of sugar. When you are going to give me back, because you are supposed to give me back after 1 week or after 2 days, you are not supposed to pay me, you are not supposed to give me the same sugar that I gave it to you. Am I right? It is impossible, right? Because you are going to use it, consume it, you are going to consume it and you will destroy, you will exploit the thing, and then you will go to the market and you will buy for me a new 1 kilo of sugar and you will return to me. All right. This is how people deal with any kind of perishable and homogeneous product. You got it? So now in this way, if I lend you a kilo of sugar, a kilo of wheat, or maybe I give you 1,000 ringgit. So now I said, okay, when you return this 1 kilo of sugar, 1 kilo of wheat, or 1,000 ringgit, when you return to me, you should give me extra. Let's say I say you should give me 1 kilo plus 100 gram, or I say 1,000 ringgit plus 100 ringgit. Then that additional thing that I'm asking you is actually a riba. Huh? But this example is totally contrast with other non-perishable or non-homogeneous product. For example, I give you my phone, I give you my car, I give you my house. Eventually, you will be using my phone, you will be using my car, you will be using my house. Then I will say after 1 week time, you pay me 100 ringgit. Hmm? This is what we call a renting. But here the exact, but this renting, taking that 100 ringgit from you is actually will not become a riba. Why? Because you are getting the usifruct of the product that I gave you, and then you are going to return the same thing to me. Are you going to give me different house? Are you going to give me different phone? Are you going to give me different car? No. You are going to give me the same house, same car, same mobile phone. Plus the usifrat that you enjoy, I'm charging you. I'm charging you service. I'm charging you because you used the usifrat, the benefit. So this is what we call renting. So now the question will come, if giving you the house, renting you the house, renting you the car, renting you the mobile phone is accepted, then why not money? Right? So that is the right question. Huh? A question may arise that if a person can charge another for the use of his house, why he should not charge him for the use of his money? Because I gave you 1,000 ringgit like in the previous example, and you use that 1,000 ringgit, and then because you benefit from that 1,000 ringgit, why don't I um, charge something because you used my money? Here we need to understand, like I told you earlier, these are not the same types of property. They are different types of property, because house is a usable property and money is a considered perishable property. Why money is not usable property? Why money comes in perishable property? Why? Because we don't know, we are not so sure about, the using that money, you are actually gaining some money. Because most of the cases you borrow from me 1,000 ringgit because you want to consume it, you want to perish it. If in case you took 1 kilo of sugar from me, you didn't want to consume it, you didn't want to eat it, but you want to sell to somebody, by which you are actually making a profit by selling 1 kilo of sugar you took from me, but you are selling to somebody. You make into small packets, like 100 grams. So you make 100 grams of sugar, and then you are selling to 10 different people, and then you are making money out of it. So now this is not actually for the consumption, this is for enterprise. When it comes to enterprise, you and me become partners. This is where we have to bring the murabaha and mudaraba concept, which inshallah you will be learning this, the murabaha and musharaka in the fiqh 2. In the next semester, when you go for the fiqh 2, you will be learning this. All right. So now I coming back to the money that someone wants to consume. He doesn't want to do business out of it. He wants to consume. Then I may not know whether the your consumption will lead to making money, because it's not going to lead you to make money. It's actually you are going to consume it. You are not going to return the same. I mean the same money that I gave you. You will be giving me the different money. It's not the same money with the same serial number, isn't it? All right. For example, a person who uses his money to buy a computer cannot use the same money to buy another thing. The same applies to other homogeneous properties as rice, sugar, oil, because it's not the same. Because when you are returning 1000 ringgit, you are not going to return to me the same 1000 ringgit with the same serial number. It has to be the different 1000 ringgit, which means that you have almost consumed, destroyed that money, and you are bringing me equivalent of money as a repayment. All right. But when it comes to house, car, mobile phone, you are going to give me back exactly the same house, exactly the same car, exactly the same mobile phone. All right. Assigning time value to money is equivalent to accepting that money can be rented out. That's why the time value, you will be learning so many other classes talking about the time value to money. So because of this time value to the money, because of that, today the conventional banking, they actually charging a rental to your money. They are charging a riba interest. Why? Because of that concept, we call it time value. So you cannot put time value to money, because as Imam al-Ghazali says, that the money is like alphabets. You have alphabets like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't keep that alphabet exactly like A, B, C, D, E. You have to make words from those alphabets. You're not gonna keep as it is. There is no point of keeping the alphabets as it is. It has to be changed so that A, B, C, D, E, F, G can become like a word like rent, a word like charging, a word like amount, anything from A, B, C, D, E, F, G alphabets. The reason he gives this example, he says it exactly like money. The money, the purpose of money is not keeping as a money. He also opposed to the store value of the money. He says money must be the medium of exchange. The same things Ibn Taymiyyah also says. The money must be what? Medium of exchange. You cannot store the money, because when you start storing the money, then you consider money as a commodity. That's the reason why in Sharia, money is not a commodity. Because of that, money cannot be rented out. Because of that, renting money on the basis of interest, it is called riba. All right. Furthermore, when a house is rented, it is certain that the tenant would get benefit or different from the house. Money, on the other hand, had to become part of an enterprise and combined with efforts in order to give benefit/profit. The money would have been invested, and there could be the possibilities of profit and loss. Charging an extra amount for the time, irrespective of the outcome of the enterprise, is considered injustice. Instead of renting money, Islamic law recommends profit and loss sharing contracts. This is where you will be learning next semester about murabaha, musharaka, and mudaraba. In contrast, conventional banks in practice are renting money and not lending money. The next one, number two, which is riba in cash. This is called riba al-fadl. So we talked about borrowing the money. Mhm. We talked about lending the money, all right, which Quran clearly says it is a riba. When you are lending the money from someone, when you are giving money to someone, you should not charge extra. If you charge extra, it becomes riba. Now, what about trading? All right, because now I'm not, my concern is not about lending the money. My concern is not about borrowing some money for my own consumption, because I need 1000 ringgit for this month. I don't have anything to eat, so I want to borrow 1000 ringgit. It's not the case. Now we are talking about a trade. We talk about, we want to exchange two commodities, whether when I exchange the two different commodities, what should be the measurement? Can I go extra? Can I delay? These are the things when it comes, then we have riba in cash. So this one comes from the Sunnah, like Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, gold is to be paid by the gold, al-zahabu bil-zahabi, wal-fiddatu bil-fiddati. The same thing goes to silver by silver. The same thing goes to wheat by wheat, barley by barley, dates by dates, salt by salt. So Prophet ﷺ talks about six commodities: gold, silver, wheat, barley, dates, and then salt. Like by like, payment being made hand to hand, he who made an addition to it or asked for an addition in fact dealt in ushuri. The receiver and the giver are equally guilty. This hadith comes in Surah Sahih Muslim. And then to understand this hadith, of course, we need more explanation, because the hadith talks about, gold for gold, silver for silver, right? And then he talks about the six commodity. Why Prophet talks about equal? Because why people has to do with equal? Because people always wants to exchange gold for silver, or silver for gold, wheat for barley or barley for wheat, dates for salt or maybe salt for dates. Why it is that Prophet ﷺ talks about, all these? This is all need more explanation. We will come to it. There's another hadith. This is quite simple hadith and very very interesting hadith. When Prophet ﷺ saw Bilal, he brought 1 kilo. Let's say, because it is the measurement is a saw. Saw is actually a kind of measurement to make it proper understanding to you and to me. So I convert, I paraphrase the hadith. So I say 1 kilo. All right. So when Bilal radiallahu anhu brought um, 1 kilo of superior quality of date, and he exchanged 2 kilo of inferior quality of the dates. Then Prophet ﷺ said, he said, this is in fact ushuri, therefore don't do that, because he had a 2 kilo of inferior quality of dates, and he went to the market and he gave it to somebody 2 kilo, and then he took 1 kilo of superior good quality of the dates. All right, then he came to the Prophet and then he showed to him, he gave it to him. Prophet ﷺ said, you cannot do that. Then Prophet ﷺ gave him the solution. He said, if you want to do that, this is the right way of doing. Sell that 2 kilo of dates to someone and then take the money, let's say dinar or dirham or something else, and then use that money and then buy 1 kilo of superior date. So now this is the method that Prophet ﷺ said. If you look into the result, the end result, actually it looks the same. I mean, at the end of the day, you are getting the same thing. Whether you want to give 2 kilo of sugar and get 1 kilo of sugar, I mean, 2 kilo of inferior dates, and then you get 1 kilo of superior date, or you sell 2 kilo of inferior date for, let's say, 50 ringgit, and then use that 50 ringgit to buy a superior quality of dates. It looks alike, but there is a lots and lots of differences, which inshallah we will talk about it. Now, first question from this hadith: Why Prophet ﷺ talked about these six commodities only? All right, we need to know what exactly the underlying cause for riba. Prophet ﷺ said so many things about the hadith. So now, whether the first question comes, is it only these six items, or other than, what about the things other than the six items? What about the rice? What about the sugar? Huh? What about the other things like fruits, the other things like, vegetables, so many things, right? So now, most of the opinions of the fuqaha, the ulama, they all talk about, they said that you can go through qiyas, analogy, and then they said other things also can be considered, but they have differences in the reason, the illah for the prohibition, why it was prohibited, why only these six things. Then they have differences. So first of all, the Maliki, according to Maliki, he says that Prophet ﷺ talks about gold and silver because these two things belong to the class of money, because dinar and dirhams, all right. And the other four commodities, the reason why Prophet ﷺ prohibited, because there is a quality of storability. You can store, um, you can actually do the storing for dates, salt, wheat, and barley, right? But according to Shafi and Hanbali, they says they agree upon gold. They agree what Maliki says on gold and silver, but they don't bring the storability issue, because according to Hanbali and Shafi'i, it is not only these four items, it is not only the storability, even it can extend it to all food stuff. According to Maliki and Shafi'i, they say even vegetables, even rice, even the things that can, even the things, even vegetables, for example, there is no storability for the vegetables because it will get destroyed, right? The fruits, for example, can get destroyed, isn't it? So now, according to Imam Maliki, vegetables and vegetables and the fruits will not come. But according to Shafi and Hanbali, all food stuff will come. But according to the Hanafi, they said all the commodities that normally sold by weight and measurement. If you have anything that's sold by the weight and measurement, will come to this. This is what actually, practically speaking, all four imams, they want to extend the hadith to other commodities as well. But if you look into the six items that you want to know, the six items that Prophet ﷺ said, we have done extensive research and people still doing it. According to, in my opinion, so far, why I saw only these six commodities that Prophet ﷺ said, that's because these six commodities, gold, silver, wheat, barley, dates, and salt, these six commodities has a unique characteristic. What is it? You can see that, of course, all these six items are permanently, you can keep it. Even dates, the dates will be ratab, and then will be, ratab means very young, and then will become fruit, and then after that it become dry. So, what I mean by that, all these six items were the currencies of those days. So I want you to understand this very, very clearly, because so if you can understand this in this way, then everything else will be understood. Why these six items Prophet ﷺ said is because these six items used as a barter exchange. Like for example, those days if you go to any market and then you want to buy something, so the seller will ask you first, do you have gold? No. Okay. Do you have silver? No. Do you have wheat? Do you have barley? Do you have dates? Do you have salt at least? So this is how the barter exchange has been happening. So now, today, if you want to put this in today's financial market, I would say it could be dollars, euros, pounds, ringgit, rupees, right? So this is all actually become like a foreign exchange today. All right. So now, if you look into this, in this idea, you can understand that why Prophet ﷺ stopped um, Sheikh Bilal, I mean Hazrat Bilal, to stop him. You should not use that money. You should buy something, because he didn't want the currency directly currency exchange to currency. He wanted, if you want to exchange one currency to another currency, make sure that you bring a mediator in between. uh, Even today also somehow is happening, but we don't see it. Let's say I want to exchange $1 to 4 ringgit. So now we have the calculation for $1 equal to 4 ringgit, but inside there are so many calculations. So now $1 will go back to it can go back to because last time, the money was backed by gold. Now we have that's why the ulama, they have big issue, because today's currency is not backed by gold. But when it's go backed by gold, the things were very clear, because when you want to exchange any money to in any currencies, then it always become equivalent to gold, and then it can be convert into other currencies. That's the reason why Prophet ﷺ stopped him to do that, right? If Bilal did that other than these six commodities, Prophet ﷺ never stopped him, because the other things were not, for example, um, any fruits or any living things, let's say camel or sheep, it is allowed for you to uh, exchange one good camel for two ships, or one good camel for two small camels, one good cow for two small calves. So this is all actually is allowed. But when it comes to currency, then only these six items consider as a currency. All right. Okay, that's one I want you to remember all the time. Riba al-Fadl arises, one of these, okay, the combined effect of these two hadiths is that when ribawi properties are exchanged against each other, they should be exchanged on equal basis, and any such exchange should be immediate. See, this is what I'm talking about, that currencies. If you are, if I actually exchange a ringgit versus US dollar, I have to exchange on the spot. I cannot say that, okay, I give you $100 now, but I will collect the equivalent ringgit after 1 month. It is not possible, because after 1 month, it's not the same US dollar like today, because it is changing. The same thing goes the other days, those days as well. These six commodities is time to time has its own value, because some people will come and say, okay, I will give you the cottons for 100 kilo of dates. Someone will come and say, okay, I will give you the leathers for 10 kilo of wheat. Understand? So this is how the barter exchange has been done, and today we can also understand this in different currencies. That's the reason why Prophet ﷺ said it has to be exchanged immediately. You cannot wait for it, because let's say if someone um, exchanging gold for silver or silver for gold, it has to be hand by hand. It has to be immediate. But if someone is exchanging one camel for two camels, it's not necessary it has to happen immediately. I would say, okay, I'll give you one camel today. After 1 month, you give me two small camels. If you agree, if both of you agree, Alhamdulillah, shouldn't be a problem, right? But when it comes to these six commodities, it is very important. This is what I want you to understand clearly. So riba al-fadl arises when one of these commodities is exchanged for an equal amount of the same commodity. When the amounts are equal, the delivery of one of them is deferred. For example, ushuri is either to sell or exchange one measure of wheat. for 2 measures of wheat, or 1 kilo of dates for 2 kilo of dates, or 1 measures of wheat for 2 measures of the deliverable at future period. This is actually what actually cannot be done. If the parties are not willing to exchange their commodities such as dates on equal basis, then one of them should sell his dates and use the money to purchase the dates from the other party. So now it will make sense only if you keep thinking that only these six commodities, only these six currencies of those days, it is not possible. Let's say today I want to do that kind of business, because today most of the time you will be seeing that people, they don't make cash on delivery, or maybe, like for example, if you are a shop owner, you will be saying that it's called bill to bill payment. You give me 100 soaps today, so after 1 month you come back and you bring me another 100 soaps, and then you take the money for the last time that you supplied 100 soap. This is actually the business today is happening. So according to the hadith, if you say everything must be done in that way, then there is no business can move. You understand? So in order to make the business moving, we need to understand why Prophet ﷺ said only these six commodities. Right? That's very important. Also, equality is not a condition where different ribawi items, see, different ribawi commodities are exchanged. The equality is not a condition. However, such an exchange should take place immediately and from hand to hand, only if it is within that six items. Immediately has to happen, hand to hand has to happen, only for the six items. If other items, it is not possible to happen, hand to hand. It is not possible to happen immediately, right? So we need to understand this. For instance, the sale of 10 grams of gold for 50 grams of silver, I agree, because gram of gold and gram of silver, both of them are currencies. It's like US dollar versus euro, or euro versus pound. It has to happen immediately. It cannot happen later. But what if I want to pay 100 euro for 100 kilo of sugar? Not necessary it has to happen immediately. I can pay you later, right? I can pay you deferred payment. I can make deferred payment, because this is how the business we do. However, the exchange should be immediate. It is not lawful to sell 10 grams of gold for 50 grams of silver. So this is understood. The condition of equality or immediateness to delivery are not applicable. So remember, this is a very important point. The conditions of equality or immediateness of delivery are not applicable to properties that fall outside ribawi commodities. Remember, the ribawi commodities are those six commodities that we discussed. Other than that, you don't have to have a conditions of the equality or immediateness. Properties that are sold, not sold by weight, measurement, or counting could be engaged. For example, if someone wants to sell for one car for two cars, or one sheep for two sheep, he is okay to do that. One sheep for two sheep is not going to become the riba. All right. The wisdom hikmah behind the prohibition of riba al-fadl could be that the value of a ribawi commodity such as dates cannot be ascertained by other dates. For instance, the value of a lower quality dates cannot be ascertained with reference to a higher quality date. Its value has to be established with reference to some other measure such as gold or silver. Riba al-fadl was prohibited also according to the block the means. I think we remember if we talked about it during the maxims. Sadd al-daraya. Why riba al-fadl was there in hadith? Because to block the means. All right. This is the last one for today. What is the differences between riba and nasi'a and riba al-fadl? We talked about two riba, right? Number one difference, one of them from Quran, the other one from Sunnah. The second difference, riba al-nasi'a happens only in the cases of loan, but riba al-fadl, when it happens, during the trade, during the contract. Number three, in cases of debt, it is possible that a debtor voluntarily returns an additional amount to the creditor. It is possible in riba al-nasi'a. If you want to voluntarily pay extra, you can pay extra. While in exchange of ribawi commodities against each other, any addition is prohibited. In business, additional thing is prohibited. Number four, the last one, riba and nasi'a is bad in itself. That's why we call it muharram li dhatihi. Dhat means itself. Huh? But riba al-fadl muharram li ghayrihi. But the second types of riba, it's haram because of some other reason, not because it is itself is haram. Huh? Riba al-nasi'a itself is haram. Riba al-fadl is haram because of some other thing. For the sake of others, at least to riba al-nasi'a. Because riba al-fadl, at the end of the day, will will go will become like riba al-nasi'a. That's the reason why riba al-fadl was haram according to Sunnah. So I think that's all for today.